Alex never forgot the sound her badge made when it stopped working. It was a short, sharp beep, too soft for drama, too final for denial. 1 second she was an employee of VeritasRx. The next, she was a security risk. 20 years. No warning. No meeting. No explanation. Just a locked turnstile. She stood there, frozen, in the lobby where she had welcomed interns, trained managers, and quietly fixed other people's mistakes for 2 decades. Her reflection on the glass door looked unfamiliar: tired eyes, chipped nail polish, coffee stain on her blouse. A woman erased. The security guard approached, shifting uncomfortably. "Ms. Green. I've been told you're not authorized to enter." "I work here," she replied, though her voice betrayed her. He looked away. "I'm sorry. You've been removed from the system." Removed. That was the word they used. It didn't matter that Alex had been the one to discover the fraud. That she had followed protocol, submitted a report, and tried to protect the company. What mattered was that she had seen too much, and refused to look away. Later, she would replay this moment in her mind over and over. Not the part where she was escorted out. Not the part where she stood in the rain with an empty box and a heavier heart. But the part where she realized they didn't expect her to fight back. And that would be their mistake. Because what VeritasRx didn't know was that Alex had kept everything. Every email. Every spreadsheet. Every lie. And she was done being quiet. It had started weeks earlier. A routine quarterly review. Just numbers. Just columns. Until one line didn't match. A supposed $870,000 donation to a mobile health program in Nairobi. But there was no vendor invoice. No customs record. Just a vague PDF and a blurry signature. Alex had spent her entire career trusting numbers. That's why she noticed when they started lying. The deeper she dug, the worse it became: reimbursements tied to non-existent clinics, purchase orders for equipment that never shipped, and expense reports routed through a non-profit that didn't seem to exist. She didn't sleep for 3 nights. On the 4th, she printed the documents and walked them down the quiet hallway to the CFO's office, Martin Blake. Corner office. Perfect tie. Perfect smile. The kind of man who never learned your name unless he needed something from you. "I think there's a problem," she said, placing the folder on his desk. He opened it. Skimmed a page. Closed it. "I appreciate the diligence, Alex," he said smoothly. "But these things are complicated. Best to let legal sort it out." "It looks deliberate," she said, voice steadier than she felt. "If we don't report this, we're complicit." Martin's smile didn't waver. "Do you know what's complicated, Alex? Loyalty. Trust. Timing." He didn't thank her. He didn't ask questions. He didn't even look surprised. She walked out of his office with a pit in her stomach. The next morning, her system access was revoked. Her inbox, deleted. Her name, erased from the company directory. And just like that, 2 decades of precision, loyalty, and quiet sacrifice were gone. No severance. No exit interview. Just a corporate obituary written in silence. But Alex wasn't mourning. Not really. Because in her apartment, tucked inside a plain manila folder, was a full archive. Email chains. Invoices. Internal memos. VeritasRx thought they'd buried the truth. They didn't realize they'd just made Alex the only person left who could speak it. And she would. No matter the cost. They took her job. They took her reputation. But what they didn't take was her evidence. The apartment grew quieter after the firing. Alex didn't leave the house for days. She lived on instant oatmeal and peppermint tea, surrounded by documents spread across every flat surface. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was preparation. Every time she read through the files, fabricated vendor contracts, identical expense reports under different names, donation receipts for clinics that didn't exist. One thought kept pulsing in her mind. This isn't just unethical. It's criminal. But knowing the truth and proving it were two very different things. Her first step was Lena. They hadn't spoken in years, but Lena answered the call like no time had passed. A forensic accountant, once respected in the industry, until she blew the whistle on her own firm and got quietly blacklisted. "Welcome to the club," she said after hearing Alex's story. Together, they spent nights cross-referencing financial records, building a timeline, connecting accounts. Lena brought technical clarity. Alex brought instinct. Both of them brought scars. Lena introduced her to a secure forum called the Citizens Ledger, a digital sanctuary for corporate whistleblowers. No names. No ego. Just evidence. Alex uploaded everything. Under the alias Red Ledger 52, she began posting weekly breakdowns of VeritasRx's fraudulent operations. She used plain language, no jargon, no loopholes. Just truth, laid bare. At first, no one noticed. Then one day, a private message appeared in her inbox. From Evan Reyes. Subject: Whistleblower Files. "I believe you. Let's talk." He was young, early 30s, sharp eyes, and a weary tone that came from chasing too many stories that never saw the light of day. They met at a library cafe, surrounded by whispers and the hiss of espresso machines. "I've seen fraud before," Evan said. "But this is institutional. Intentional. And global." Alex didn't nod. She already knew. Evan took a copy of the files, and over the next 3 weeks, dug deeper than she thought possible. He contacted former employees, traced payments through shell companies, even found an old marketing intern who'd been paid under 2 different names. Then, the retaliation began. First, anonymous emails, "You're making a mistake." Then a dead rat on her front step. Then her bank account froze, "Routine security review," the manager had said. One night, Alex came home to find her door unlocked. Nothing was missing. But her hard drives had been unplugged. That was the night Lena insisted she move in for a while. "You're not doing this alone," she said. "Not anymore." And then, finally, the headline. "Prescription for Profit, Inside the Humanitarian Fraud of VeritasRx." The Herald-Times, front page, Sunday edition. Alex stared at it on the screen, her heart pounding like a war drum. Her name was in the byline. She had told Evan he didn't need to use it. That anonymity was safer. But he'd asked her one last time. And she'd said, quietly, "They already erased me once. They don't get to do it again." By noon, the article had gone viral. By sundown, VeritasRx issued a press release, denying everything. And by midnight, Alex's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Lawyers. Former colleagues. Strangers. Some offering help. Some not. Alex thought telling the truth would be the hardest part. She was wrong. The real fight was just beginning. There is a strange kind of loneliness that comes after you win. For weeks, Alex woke up at 6:15 a.m. out of habit. But there were no morning meetings. No emails. No need to dress in anything but sweatpants. The hearings had started. Martin Blake was under federal investigation. VeritasRx's PR team was hemorrhaging goodwill. But Alex sat in her tiny kitchen, watching her tea kettle boil, wondering what came next. She had become a symbol in an article. A hashtag. A fleeting headline on the evening news. And then, silence. No book deals. No speaking tours. Just lost income, a frozen 401k, and a growing sense that justice had a short attention span. Worse, the world around her had changed. Some friends disappeared. Former coworkers stopped replying to messages. A neighbor who once borrowed sugar now avoided eye contact. Even Lena, as supportive as she was, had her own life, her own scars. They texted, but the late-night war room energy had faded into separate routines. Alex tried applying for jobs, carefully editing her resume to downplay the whistleblower role. But the questions always came. Why did you leave VeritasRx? Would you consider a less visible role? We're looking for someone who doesn't bring too much attention. One recruiter said it plainly, "You're brilliant. But you're radioactive." There were days Alex didn't speak to a single person. And then, the email came. From monica.cardenas@welcaribiotech.org. Subject, "You changed my life." It was 4 paragraphs. Monica, 57. Payroll admin working in silence. Had noticed strange pay structures and vendor bonuses in her firm, but was too afraid to speak, until she read Alex's posts on the Citizen's Ledger. "I thought I was going crazy. I thought no one would believe me. But then I saw what you did. I printed your article and left it on my manager's desk. The next week, an internal audit was launched. I'm still here. I'm still scared. But I'm not invisible anymore." Alex sat at her desk for an hour, staring at the screen. Then she hit reply. "You are not alone. Let's talk." That night, they spoke for 2 hours. About numbers. About fear. About being 50 plus in a system designed to replace you quietly. Monica wasn't the last. A retired nurse wrote to her about uncovering insurance fraud at a clinic in Texas. A laid-off secretary said Alex's breakdown of fake shell companies helped her recognize similar tactics in her ex-husband's business, and she used it to protect her divorce settlement. A woman in Detroit started calling herself the spreadsheet witch after organizing a group of underpaid cafeteria workers to confront their school board. Alex realized this wasn't just about VeritasRx. It was about something bigger. That weekend, she bought a domain, www.numbersdon'tlie.org. She spent 3 days building it, basic design, no fluff. Just practical guides, how to read a P&L statement, what a donor pass-through looks like in real fraud, how to report without putting your life in danger. She posted her first video. Nervous. No makeup. Just her, sitting in front of a bookshelf, saying, "Hi. I'm Alex. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not famous. But I've worked in corporate accounting for 29 years. And I want to teach you the things no one taught me until it was almost too late." She expected 10 views. She got 12,000 in 3 days. People began commenting, sharing, requesting topics, offering their own stories. She called Lena. "I think I started something." Lena laughed. "You think?" They built it out together. Lena added case studies. Monica contributed Spanish translations. A young whistleblower from Nebraska volunteered to do subtitles. By month's end, the site had over 50,000 visitors. But it wasn't about numbers anymore. It was about voices. One day, Alex received a certified letter. Not a lawsuit. Not a threat. An invitation. To speak at a community center in Philadelphia, where a group of women over 50 were organizing to fight wage theft and needed someone to train them on how to spot irregularities in vendor reports. The trip was long. The hotel was modest. But when she entered the hall, 50 women stood and applauded. She wasn't a whistleblower here. She was a mentor. Later that night, back in the hotel room, Alex opened the old leather notebook she had once used to log fraud patterns. On a blank page, she wrote, "They buried me with silence. But I used the quiet to build something louder." She looked out the window at the streetlights flickering across old brick buildings. Tomorrow, there would be another webinar. Another inbox full of questions. Another woman ready to speak. She smiled. They had taken her job. But they couldn't take her voice. And now, she was teaching others how to find theirs. And somewhere, behind a polished boardroom door, another company executive just signed off on a lie. Not knowing that this time, someone would be watching. A year passed. The headlines had long moved on. The investigations had closed. VeritasRx was fined, restructured, rebranded. Martin Blake pled guilty, received probation, vanished into luxury exile. But Alex, she never disappeared. She became a quiet force. Numbers Don't Lie had grown beyond what she imagined: online courses in 6 languages, monthly support groups, even a scholarship fund for women over 50 pursuing careers in finance and compliance. She no longer needed to tell her story, because others were telling theirs. One day in early spring, she received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a photograph: a small, windowless room, a group of women in bright saris seated around a long wooden table. A whiteboard behind them read: Whistleblowers Workshop, India Chapter. Inspired by Alex Green, red ledger 52-inch. Tucked inside was a note in careful English. Your courage crossed oceans. Your voice became ours. Thank you. Alex held the photo for a long time. That afternoon, she walked past the bakery that still sold the same stale croissants. Past the office supply store where she used to buy folders in bulk. And then, finally, she stood in front of it. VeritasRx headquarters. The glass doors gleamed like they always had. New logo. New leadership. New promises. But the security desk looked the same. So did the cold lobby. Alex didn't go in. She didn't need to. She reached into her bag and pulled out the old leather notebook. She had carried it for months, unsure where to leave it. Today, she knew. She stepped forward, opened the lobby's free newspaper stand, and slid the notebook inside, between glossy brochures about innovation and responsibility. She turned and walked away. Not with revenge. Not with bitterness. But with something deeper. She had once believed her value came from silence, obedience, and never making waves. Now she knew better. Justice wasn't loud. It was steady. It was stubborn. It was a woman over 50, walking away from a building that once erased her, toward a life she built, number by number, voice by voice. Back home, Alex sat at her desk, logged into Numbers Don't Lie, and clicked Start New Session. The screen lit up. Dozens of women were already waiting. One of them typed in the chat. Hi Alex. First time here. I'm terrified, but ready. Alex smiled. She leaned forward and spoke, clear, warm, unwavering. Then you're already halfway there. They thought they'd fired a number. What they did was awaken a legacy. This story isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming dignity after being discarded. Alex's journey reminds us that telling the truth may come with consequences, but staying silent can cost even more. In a world that often overlooks women over 50, she became a quiet force for justice, for purpose, and for change. What about you? Did you connect with Alex's courage? What did you think of Lena? Of Martin Blake? Share your perspective in the comments below. We want to hear your voice. And hey, if you enjoyed this story, comment the number 2. If it didn't quite resonate with you, comment the number 7, and tell us why. Either way, your feedback helps us grow. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to True Tales, where Natalie brings you gripping, real stories that stay with you long after they end. We're here every day, with voices that matter, stories that move, and a space for you to be part of it all.